Okay, today we're talking about the biggest mistakes that I've made in real estate. I've even invited Stephen Michael Miller to come on the channel and share his biggest mistakes. And today we're going to share with you the 5 things that we hope you learn from our mistakes that cost us a lot of money. Will he understand? We all need somebody to lean on. Okay, so I'm leaning on my friend Stephen Miller. I was like, hey, Stephen, come on out. I'm shooting videos on the worst things I've ever done in real estate. Hey, will you come and share, will you open up the closet doors and share with us, the worst mistakes you've made? And there's such valuable training to be gained when you actually learn from people that have made mistakes. Stephen, how was that useful?
Mistakes are something that we are all going to make at some point or another, but the reality is we don't all have to make all of the same mistakes. This is what mentorship is about. You can learn from people that have gone on before you, and we've got this amazing group that has been asking us now for a couple weeks, hey guys, you talk a lot about what to do and the great things about real estate, but what were some of the biggest failures that you've had? Chris, have you had some failures in real estate?
I've certainly had some failures. I've had some things that I'll never do again.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, one of my college professors said, hey, you don't have to stick your head in a garbage can to find out that it stinks.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to open up the big dumpster on our failures and say, take a whiff.
This is going to be nostalgic. I used to get into dumpsters. We never talked about that here.
I'm sure we've done your dumpster diving. Stephen is a self-made man who truly came from the Bronx, if you will, right? Down and under.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Right?
So let's jump in. These failures that we experience, number one, how do you take that information, and before we get into our stories, because we all have them, how do you take those failures and really begin to learn from them, Chris?
If you, first of all, you're doing the right thing by being here and watching these videos, because we're actually going to share as many failure moments as possible that can be useful for you and not making them. And I think that's actually just part of the education. And once you learn, you got to have pen and paper out and you got to write it down so that you got your real estate journal. As you watch these videos, I hope you're journaling what you're learning, what to do, what not to do, right? And so here's the first couple of what not to do's. First of all, write this down. Due diligence, right? Steve and I are going to share an example here. I don't know what you got, but I'll tell you what I got. I had done this property, and this was a property that was built in the 50s. This was an older home, and come to find out just after I bought it that we had sewer backing up in the basement.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, all right, we'll clean that up. And that was a big problem. I did not like cleaning that. That was nasty. Trying to figure out how to Clorox and clean and sanitize all that. And then it did it again. And I started quickly realizing, oh my gosh, I can't put anything down the drain. We snaked the line. That's where they take a camera, bump it down there, and found out that there was a belly in the line. And the belly in the line, it's because some roots from the trees had actually gotten under one of the sewer pipes that went out to the main sewer on the street, bumped it up. And what it did, it created a backflow. And that was the problem that we had. Now, legally, the people that had lived in that house for 50 years should have disclosed that, and they didn't. And there was legal recourse. I didn't pursue it. I paid $5,000. I had a licensed and bonded city contractor come out and dig up my problem, relay the pipe, and it was a lesson in due diligence. So due diligence means you're excited you're getting a property. Remember, properties, they're complicated. And what that means is there's a lot of moving pieces, and you only need one bad sewer line to have it cost you $5,000, maybe some deep frustration, and maybe some tenants that live in your basement that are not so thrilled about living there anymore. It's because the poop's coming up everywhere, right? What about you, Stephen?
Yeah,
due diligence, biggest mistakes.
This is big. So I bought my first home. This is in Tampa, Florida. And when I bought the home, I was really excited. First home syndrome, right? Everything is great and wonderful.
Seeing the dream.
Took the advice of a few different people.
Was this an
around
investment
me.
property or one you were going to live in?
This is one that I was going to live in.
Right.
I eventually turned it into investment property, and that's another story. But when I bought it, I didn't realize it had massive termite damage. And you can't see termite damage necessarily from the outside. A home inspector probably won't be able to catch termite damage unless they are certified to do a WDO inspection, which is a wood-destroying organism, termite inspection.
Okay, wait,
right?
so real quick, I want to be clear. Everyone that buys a home normally pays to get an inspector. And by the way, unless you're a contractor, a handyman, an inspector is going to do basically a visual. They're going to look at the house visually and look for errors, problems, squeaky, this is and that's. And so if you know your way around a house and you're confident in all house systems, you may not need to pay for an inspection. But if you are not familiar with that, that might be the best $200, $300, $400 that you spend to create awareness of what are they looking at But even an inspector, had Stephen paid $300, wouldn't have necessarily caught the termite. Now, by the way, in Florida, is termites a deal?
Termites are almost always going to be around, especially in a wood home. And this is an older wood home. And my home was a 1924, I think, was when it was built. Old bungalow, wood frame construction. Anyway, should have done the due diligence, didn't. Ended up having to tent my home, ended up remodeling the home. We ended up having to actually take it down to the studs.
What did it cost you?
About 60 grand or so.
Okay, so just pause for
That was a big deal.
Just pause for a moment. Right now, here where I live, we wouldn't really order a termite. But if you live in an area, for example, where there's a specialty condition regarding real estate like that, then you learn, okay, here's the next thing that we want you to write down from us. Look at what is unique problems to your area. Like, for example, do you live in a flooding zone? Or do you live in a, do you live in a zone where you have these deep winter freezes that can freeze your pipes and burst them? Do you have termites?
Do you live in a hurricane zone? Do you need, hurricane straps to hold the roof down? I mean, those are a big thing that a lot of people miss. So get an inspector, a competent inspector. Get the inspections that are additional that you might need. Maybe your home is in a radon area. You may not know what radon is. It's a cancer-causing gas. You check for it. Those are the things that you might want to do.
All right, so I think the first thing that we're hitting so far in our stories today is due diligence.
Yeah.
You've got to do your due diligence. Here's the second thing that I want to hit on. Insurance. Everyone gets property insurance and they think it's covered. Like, will insurance cover termites? Maybe not. Will they cover a broken pipe? Maybe not. Will it cover mold? Maybe not. Will it cover a broken sewer? Maybe not.
Will it cover an earthquake? Maybe not.
Yeah, so the reality is, just because you have insurance on the property doesn't mean that you're protected. I want to share with you, I had bought my very first house, and these people had previously lived in it for like 50 years. It was from the 50s, actually, and they were by law supposed to give me a disclosure document telling all known problems in the home. They didn't do that. I buy the home, I move in, fix it up a little bit, move a family into my basement, start collecting a basement rent. Everything's going great until all of a sudden the basement backs up with sewage. And it's just coming right out the toilet. It comes onto the bathroom floor, into the kitchen, and starts heading into the living room. And it's like, that's a really crappy situation, right? Like, how do you even clean that up? And I just want to tell you right now, I was wearing gloves up to here. I felt like I wanted to put on a full hazmat. It was gross. But you know what? After I cleaned it up, we didn't know why it happened. 2 days later, it happened again, but even worse. So I thought, there's a problem. There's a pattern here. So we hired Roto-Rooter to snake the line. This is where they put a big wire snake down and they churn it and move it. They're trying to push any blockage of debris because someone could have flushed something down the toilet, right? Well, it turns out that they put a camera down there. And there was a belly in the line. Now, the sewer pipe is supposed to go downhill under your house until it hits the sewer. But there was a root from a tree that had gone over and done this, boom, and created a belly in the line by bumping it up. This was a pre-existing condition from a long time ago. And basically, if you were putting a tampon down the thing was going to back up. It was a problem. So, by the way, paying someone, first of all, it was a big problem because if you want to fix that, it's going to cost $5,000, $10,000. I paid, I think, $6,000 to have someone dig up the line and actually do it appropriately. And the city got involved because it started moving into the street and I needed a licensed and bonded city contractor. And I thought, man, how did this happen to me? Well, 2 problems on this one. First one, I could have bought insurance that covered it, but I didn't know that. I'll tell you in a moment my list of what I want insurance to cover. But number 2, the other big lesson that I really learned is that I could have had recourse to go back to the sellers and said, you guys, you should have disclosed this problem with the house and you didn't, and legally are responsible. I could have engaged in a lawsuit over that, over $5,000, $6,000. I am glad that I didn't because it would have cost a lot of negativity, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I may have had to pay $10,000 in legal fees to get my $5,000 awarded. It's not worth it when you're getting that small. But here's what I look for in insurance today that you may not know. Mold, broken pipes, sewer pipes. Those are some of my biggies that insurance companies will often not cover because you know what? You're going to have a storm where you could have a microburst and all of a sudden a window breaks and water comes into the basement. You could break a pipe if you're in an area that freezes. All of these different things, you get a little moisture in the house and all of a sudden you're ripping out drywall and you're ripping stuff out and you're replacing piping. It costs a lot of money. Insurance will cover that. I've experienced another one of my houses where I had it. They did a $20,000 remodel. They paid my rent in the meantime. I wound up with a way nicer house. I'm like, yay for insurance. I learned my lesson. Learn yours. Get appropriate, thorough insurance. I don't care if it costs $3 extra a month.
Do it.
It's worth it, right?
I want to talk about the third thing here, which is we say this all the time. If you want something done right, don't do it yourself. And I found myself in a situation, and this is again with that first home, but this is after I had moved out and I had put a tenant in myself. Now, this is before.
Is this the stripper story?
This is the stripper. Stay tuned.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is, it was interesting for me because this is before I really learned a lot about real estate. These are some of my first adventures in real estate before we had created our system and all that. And I decided, okay, well, I'm moving out of state, but I can handle this. I can put some in my home. I can find someone to do that. So I put out some ads, and I found I had some applications on the home, and this one gal came, and she had her boyfriend, looked great on paper, and yeah, I'll put you in my home. So I did. A few months later, I started getting phone calls from all my neighbors, and they called me and emailed me and said, Stephen, who did you put in your home? I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, we're pretty sure that she's a stripper, and not that that's the worst thing in the world, everyone can do what they want to kind of thing, but she's bringing clientele home. There's drugs being trafficked. The police are being called almost every other day to come out to your property. I'm like, I had no idea about any of this because I'm out of state now. And, this situation could have been a much worse situation, but I ended up having to pay this gal $1,000
to get her out.
To get out, just to leave my home.
Has it ever been bad enough that you actually paid them to leave? Like, leave by this time, I'll wire you.
Get out of contract, because there was nothing that I didn't have any evidence of anything. All I had was these neighbors' words of their word. So there was nothing legally that I could really do yet. So I paid her $1,000, got her out of my home, got a new individual in there that was much better. I learned from that mistake. But again, from here on out, I said that I will not manage my own properties. From there on out, I said, if I'm ever going to do out-of-state real estate, I'm going to have someone do that for me who is competent, who knows the area, who knows how to screen the tenants appropriately. So that was a big mistake on trying to do it myself.
Which, by the way, led to Stephen and I building a system nationwide, entering the best markets and building a team of 200 experts and realtors and property managers and lenders, people specific to those markets, where now we're transacting. I mean, we have markets with hundreds, even 1,000 homes in that market, and we're big brother with a big property management company leaning and making sure that things are done to the highest level. Yep. It's experience just like Stephen's that actually leads these upgrades. So you're not very grateful for them maybe in the moment, but you learn and you get better, and Stephen did just that. I want to share another one here that I think is super powerful that I want to end with. And it's when I over leveraged myself. And I had bought a property. I allowed myself to be seduced by a home that I could get for $300,000 that I wholeheartedly believed was worth $400,000. And, when you're doing that, it's like $100,000.
The money seduction. Yeah.
I did. I got seduced by thinking this is going to be my biggest banquet. And I had done at that time in my life, I'd probably done 8 or 9 deals. Like, I was still brand new, but I thought I knew what was going on, and I broke my rules. I went above the median substantially, meaning I was buying homes at the $200,000 price. I bought at $300,000, and you're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. Friends, look at the linear regression on individuals that can buy a $300,000 home versus a median price home, and there's a drastic difference between everyone that can get into that home and nearly nobody that can. So I get this $300,000 home, and I do some fix-up and repair on it. I put it on the market to flip it. And I'm just trying to sell it for $365,000. And I'm like, I'm not being greedy, right? It's worth $4,000. I'm going to give someone $35,000 of equity. I'm going to sell this home. I'm going to make $50,000, $60,000. I'm patting myself. I'm being so generous. But it didn't sell. I had no bites. I had nothing on that listing. And then I lowered it to $350,000, $340,000. By the time I ended up actually selling this house, I broke pure even. And I am so lucky that I only broke pure even, but this $100,000 that I hoped would be $50,000 turned into nothing really fast because I over-leveraged myself. I got in, and over-leverage can mean 2 things. One is I bought something I didn't have the financial responsibility to take care of. In this case, it means I bought something that went beyond my rules or my system. And I've done both of those, and neither of them feel good. So I would add that to today's biggest mistakes is don't over-leverage yourself. Make sure that you're staying in an appropriate price range, or if you have investing rules. The moment you break them, you can't expect the system to pump out what it could because you're stepping into unknown territory. Maybe it'll give you more. Maybe that's the risk worth taking. But what I really love is making real estate as boring as possible. For those of you that partner with Stephen and I and do deals with us or join our community and teams, you know that we're huge on systems. And we define that box and what it's got to fit in, because if it does, it's going to be like all the other properties and it's going to perform very predictably. But the moment it falls outside of that, then you lose that predictability and you usually enter into a far greater level of risk than you actually want. So Stephen, any final words of advice today for our friends that are like, what are the biggest mistakes? How can we help them avoid them?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of mistakes that you can make. The reality is you don't have to if you'll listen and learn. And hopefully you've got your notebook out, you've been taking your notes, you're going to keep those things close, and you're going to learn from our mistakes. We've made plenty of them. There's probably another video or two that we could do like this as well, and so keep tuned. But the reality is if you will learn from those mistakes and you'll move forward confidently based on that learning, you're gonna avoid a lot of things that you otherwise may fall into. You're gonna see a whole lot more success. You're gonna be a whole lot happier, and and you'll be able to grow even more exponentially.
So Stephen, let's balance it with one final piece of advice. Never allow fear of risk or fear of failure to ever keep you from taking action.
Absolutely.
Super important that you understand. We're encouraging you. Go out there, be a gladiator, make it happen. And just be smart about it. Get that education, get that knowledge. And if you have a chance to secure mentors, individuals that can guide you through the process, that you can speak to and work with, they'll be able to generally help you avoid all the pitfalls that they had made on thousands of prior deals. We're at a point today where mistakes really don't get made. We know our system, we know what we're doing. We're not infallible, but that's the benefit that you get when you learn either from someone else's mistakes vicariously or from your own. So friends, hopefully you enjoyed today's learning lessons. And my friends, those are the crappy mistakes in the chronicles of Chris Crone's adventures in real estate investing land. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have not, please subscribe, ring the bell, and check out some more of our awesome videos that we got.